This is a brief response to Sargon of Akkad's recent video entitled Sweden's Rape Culture, where he discusses what has recently been termed the Islamization of certain parts of Europe and the consequences resulting from that reality. For those of you who are yet to see his video, I've linked to it in the description, and I suggest you view it before proceeding here with me. It's worth beginning by saying that I don't contest any of the facts you present. The Swedish stats on this are strikingly transparent, and in our own country of Britain, the phenomenon of Muslim rape gangs is a real and consistent one. I earlier in the week stumbled upon this report from Norway, which also speaks to the same issue.
Recent police statistics showed that in the capital of Oslo, 100% of assault rapes between strangers were committed by immigrant non-Western males, and 9 out of 10 of their victims were native Norwegian women. Some blonde Norwegian women have reportedly begun dyeing their hair black, and many travel only in groups. Kristen Spitsnogel is a therapist who has counseled some of the rape victims, and she's been attacked in the Norwegian media for saying what many will not, that the rape problem is primarily Muslim men raping non-Muslim women, and any woman who does not dress modestly and wear the Muslim headscarf could be considered by some Muslim men as fair game.
I think you're right to point out that this is symptomatic of a wider problem. In your video, you call for a fact-driven discussion that is void of hate, and I think that's fair. But I do sense some confusion here. You point out that the vast majority of Muslims have done nothing wrong, and of course the vast majority of Muslims are not responsible for the rapes that we see, but a huge number of Muslims are part of a wider religious community that has particularly regressive ideas about women and infidels that I think you yourself acknowledge, and this attitude contributes to an atmosphere in which crimes of this kind are more easily justified. I think it's probably worth reaffirming precisely what we mean by criticizing Islam and criticizing Muslims who hold to certain ideas within that ideology.
But so to the degree that any proposition like adulterers should be stoned to death, or apostates should be killed, or women are less valuable than men, or you can get into paradise by dying in defense of the faith, martyrs get 72 virgins, whatever the specific belief is, I am concerned, one, to just criticize the doctrine where it seems like a dangerous doctrine if believed, and then two, I want to have an honest discussion about the prevalence of that belief in the Muslim world. And by Muslim world, I mean 1.6 billion Muslims wherever they happen to be, right? So the Muslim community here in Los Angeles, the Muslim community throughout Indonesia. So the Muslim world is just the sum total of Muslims. And if there's a person over there who was Muslim 15 minutes ago, but he no longer is Muslim by the end of the night after hearing our conversation, well then the Muslim world used to be over there and now it's not over there. So I'm interested in what people believe and how much they believe it, and the link between belief and action.
Right.
It should be clear that we're not talking about race and we're not talking about nationality. We're talking about ideas and actions. And the idea that you drew attention to, for example, that the Quran can mathematically determine the worth of a woman to be 50% that of a man, is a hateful idea. And I would say that anybody who holds to it has lost my respect. They have made themselves into a moral barbarian. Now, presumably they can unmake themselves, and we need to discuss how we can get from point A to point B on that. But it's worth recognizing that we are not just criticizing regressive ideas. We are criticizing the regressive people who hold to them. They are the problem. And it doesn't make you a bigot or a member of Stormfront if you point that out. Having said that, I thought your video raised a really important topic, and I've thought of a few things that somebody with your platform and connections might want to consider in terms of taking this further. We need to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Those of us who've been keeping abreast of the conversation understand that attempting to persuade others of the strong connection that exists between devotion to Islamic doctrine and regressive illiberal behavior can be like wading through treacle.
Look, we depend on the summer people here for our very lives.
You are not going to have a summer
unless
you deal with this problem.
We're not only going to have to close the beach, we're going to have to hire somebody to kill the shark. I mean, we're going to have to tell the Coast Guard.
Mr. Vaughan,
we're going to have to get
contact the shark
We're going to have to put extra deputies on because
you have to ring
the world is going to come in here.
I don't
either one of you are familiar with our problems.
I think that I am familiar with the fact that you are going to ignore this particular problem until it swims up and bites you on the ass.
George Orwell called this the power of facing unpleasant facts, and the unpleasant fact in this case is that we have a serious problem with Islam in particular, and nobody wants to acknowledge that. It seems to me that much of Europe has forgotten what it's like to really believe in something. Nobody, for example, in the UK takes the Bible literally anymore, or at least the odd crackpot that does not have access to power and influence over large sections of the community. Individuals, therefore, particularly of the modern generation, are incredibly reluctant to concede that a huge majority of the Islamic world takes scripture very seriously.
Do you actually believe in your Muslim faith? Do you believe that Muhammad split the moon in two? Do you believe that Muhammad flew to heaven on a winged horse, for example? I pay you the compliment of assuming that you don't.
No, I do. I believe in miracles.
You believe that?
Yes.
You believe that Muhammad went to heaven on a winged horse?
Yes, I believe in God. I believe in miracles. I believe in revelation. I mean, the point here is that let's assume I'm wrong, Richard. I'm wrong.
Let's
assume I'm wrong.
Now, splitting the moon in two is arguably a fairly innocuous belief, but if you consult a passage like this, which goes, "O prophet, tell thy wives and daughters and the believing women that they should cast their outer garments over their persons, that is most convenient, that they should be known and not molested," and you combine it with what we previously know, which is that women are worth half of men and are essentially their property, all you need now is a fairly rabid and regressive preacher, an impressionable mind, and an ounce of sexual frustration, which most men experience at some point in their lives, and the bridge to the problem that you want to discuss has just been made for us. So we need to blow up the fucking bridge, right? And one of the ways you can help do this is by critically discussing Islamic doctrine on your channel. You can consistently remind your audience of the ways in which this affects the world around us. I'm sure there are many ex-Muslims who would be happy to share their stories with you. But just to tell you something that you already know, you are going to be hated for this. Think of how you were denounced a sexist and a misogynist by people for simply wanting to discuss feminism and social justice from a critical standpoint. The same kinds of people will come out of the woodwork and call you an Islamophobe, a bigot, and a hater of Muslims. I think we just have to resign ourselves to the fact that we are going to deeply offend people, and that's just too bad. We need to stand up for our liberal values, and we need to protect the ideas, places, and people that matter the most to us. There is a small but courageous number of Muslims who are currently pushing a counter-narrative to much of the poison we've previously been discussing. You'll be familiar, of course, with Majid Nawaz and his UK-based foundation of Quilliam, who are in many respects on the front line in terms of this particular battle.
The challenge, and this is more a plea that I make here on your show to my fellow Muslims in Australia, and that is that we as Muslims have a task ahead of us, a monumentous task ahead of us, and that is to begin the process of adapting, of reinterpreting our scriptures for the modern day and age. Now, I think the task ahead of us is summarized best in one sentence, and that is that Islamism, this ideology I refer to, must be intellectually terminated, whereas Islam, the religion, simply must be reformed to adjust to modernity, and that's something we've had for centuries, known by Muslims as the process of ijtihad, or reinterpretation of the scripture. The scripture itself can cater for that process. Unfortunately, many Muslims today, instead of rising to that challenge, are incredibly defensive when it comes to this.
This guy gets it. He understands that when it comes to the clash between liberal values and regressive Islamic ideas, the liberal values just have to win. So get in touch with him, get in touch with his organisation, see if somebody from Quilliam will come on your channel and discuss with them. Allow them a platform to speak their piece. Because young Muslims in the UK and around the world need people like that to look up to. I was very grateful for the attention that you brought to the Gregory Allen Elliott case and the effort that you and many others made on his behalf. Perhaps something similar could be set up for the Quilliam Foundation. I personally donate to them every month in the knowledge that my money scarcely finds a better home. Ultimately, the task of reform should lie with the Muslim community itself. I'm perfectly aware, and this has been stated many times before, that if somebody like you or I were to walk into a mosque and honestly speak about our views on the Quran, the very best we could hope for would be to be ignored. But what we can do is support the reformers. We can provide them with resources, with a platform, and with understanding. So those are my thoughts, and I pulled them together in less than a couple of hours, so it's in no means a exhaustive set of avenues for you, but I just wanted to contribute in a small way, and thank you for all you've been doing. and good luck.